Most people will tell you they're a good judge of character. They'll say it with a straight face, total confidence, right before they get blindsided by someone they trusted for years. The person who cleaned out their bank account. The business partner who was building a competing company on the side. The friend who smiled at every dinner and talked destruction behind every door. You're not watching this because you think you're immune. You're watching this because you already know what it feels like to be wrong about someone, and you'd rather cut that number down to 0. If this channel has earned 60 seconds of your attention, it can earn your subscription. We don't drop content to make you feel better. We drop content that makes you harder to fool. Hit subscribe now so the algorithm keeps doing its job. Here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Character isn't hidden. It's not buried under layers of complexity, waiting for some magical moment of revelation. Character is on full display almost every single time you interact with a person. The problem was never that people hide who they are. The problem is that you weren't trained to watch. You were trained to listen. You were trained to take words at face value, to give the benefit of the doubt, to assume the best until proven otherwise. That training is why you've been burned. Words are the cheapest currency in human interaction. Anyone can say anything at any time with 0 collateral. But behavior costs something. Behavior requires energy, consistency, and commitment. That's why it tells the truth even when the mouth is lying. The first behavior that will expose someone faster than anything else is how they treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them. This isn't new advice. You've probably heard some version of it before, but you haven't heard it framed correctly, so it slid right off you. Most people here watch how they treat the waiter and think it means checking for basic politeness. That's kindergarten-level observation. What you should actually be watching for is the micro-shift in energy, the subtle downgrade in attention, the almost imperceptible change in tone between how they speak to someone who matters and someone who doesn't. A person who speaks to the CEO with warmth and then addresses the intern like furniture hasn't made a social mistake. They've handed you a blueprint of their entire operating system. They are telling you without a single word that their respect is transactional. It is not given, it is traded. And the moment you stop being useful to them, you will get the intern treatment. This isn't a maybe. This is a guarantee written in every interaction they've ever had. Now here's where most people get comfortable and assume they've figured it out. They think the rule is simple. Nice to everyone equals good character. Rude to the powerless equals bad character. But that binary is a trap, and the most dangerous people alive know exactly how to exploit it. The second behavior is performative kindness, and it is the hardest one to spot because it looks identical to the real thing from the outside. Some people are excessively kind to waiters, to strangers, to every person in the room specifically because they know you're watching. They've read the same articles you have. They know the test, and they are acing it on purpose. The tell isn't in the kindness itself. The tell is in the consistency between public and private behavior. A person who is warm and generous at the dinner party, but cold and dismissive in the car ride home, isn't kind. They're performing, and performance always has an audience in mind. When the audience leaves, the mask comes with it. You spot this by paying attention to transitions. The moment between public and private. The 30 seconds after the door closes. The shift that happens when they think no one important is observing. That sliver of time is worth more than a year of curated behavior. If you're not watching those transitions, you're only seeing the version of them that was built for your consumption. The third behavior is how a person handles being wrong. Not wrong about something small like a trivia question or a mispronounced word. Wrong about something that matters. Wrong in a way that costs them status. Wrong in front of people whose opinion they care about. A person of solid character will be uncomfortable. They might resist for a moment, but eventually they'll concede, they'll adjust. They'll take the hit and keep moving without making it someone else's fault. A person of hollow character will do something very different. They will rewrite history in real time. They will reframe the argument so that being wrong becomes someone else's failure. They'll say you misunderstood them. They'll say the context was different. They'll subtly shift the goalposts until the original claim is unrecognizable, and then act as though they were right all along. This is not a personality quirk. This is a deep structural flaw. A person who cannot absorb being wrong will eventually sacrifice you to protect their own self-image. That is not a theory. That is a pattern you can watch play out in every relationship they've ever destroyed. The fourth behavior is what someone does with information you gave them in confidence. And I don't mean the obvious betrayal, the person who tells your secret at a party. That's easy to catch. I'm talking about the subtler version. The person who doesn't repeat your exact words but uses the emotional content of what you told them to gain leverage in a future conversation. You told them you were insecure about your career. 3 weeks later, during an argument, they casually mention how some people just aren't cut out for certain paths. They didn't quote you. They didn't reference the conversation, but the blade was forged from metal you handed them willingly. This is weaponized intimacy, and the people who practice it are almost never caught because the connection between the confession and the attack is so indirect that you doubt your own perception. You think maybe you're being paranoid. Maybe you're reading too much into it. That doubt is the weapon working exactly as intended. If someone has ever made you feel crazy for noticing a pattern, that pattern is almost certainly real. The fifth behavior is how they respond to your success. Not your failure. Everyone shows up for failure. Failure is easy to support because it doesn't threaten anyone. Your worst day makes other people feel stable by comparison. That's why sympathy is so abundant and so cheap. But your best day, that tells a different story. Watch what happens when you get the promotion, close the deal, land the relationship, or simply have a stretch of momentum that puts you visibly ahead. The people who genuinely want you to win will respond with energy that matches the moment. It won't be forced. It won't be delayed. It won't come wrapped in a caveat. The ones who don't want you to win will do one of three things. They'll minimize it, they'll redirect the conversation, or they'll congratulate you with words that technically say the right thing but carry an emotional temperature just below freezing. You know the tone. It sounds like support, but feels like surveillance. Trust the feeling. Your nervous system picks up on misaligned intent faster than your conscious mind does. If their congratulations made you feel smaller instead of bigger, that wasn't an accident. Now, and this is where most channels would never go, the sixth behavior requires you to turn the lens on yourself. Because one of the fastest ways to read someone's true character is to observe how you behave around them after extended exposure. Are you editing yourself? Are you shrinking? Are you performing a version of your personality that doesn't match who you are when you're alone? If so, that's not your flaw. That's data. You are responding to something real in their presence that your body has detected and your brain hasn't named yet. The people who are safe to be around don't require you to manage their emotions through your own self-censorship. You don't walk on eggshells around someone who is stable. You don't rehearse sentences before speaking to someone who isn't dangerous. If you find yourself doing these things, stop blaming your own anxiety and start asking what you're accurately responding to. The seventh behavior is the most counterintuitive on this list, and it will contradict everything you think you know about reading people. It's this: beware the person who is excessively transparent. Everyone assumes that openness equals honesty, that the person who shares everything, their flaws, their past mistakes, their darkest moments, must be trustworthy, because why would they expose themselves unless they were genuine? Because strategic vulnerability is one of the most powerful manipulation tools that exists. A person who leads with their damage is often not being brave. They are setting a trap. By telling you their worst stories first, they accomplish two things simultaneously. They create an illusion of intimacy that normally takes months or years to build, and they establish a frame where questioning their motives feels cruel, because how could you doubt someone who was so open with you? This is why con artists almost always have a tragic backstory ready to deploy. It's not a bug in their personality. It's the primary feature. The vulnerability is the hook, and your empathy is the fish. Not every open person is manipulating you, but every sophisticated manipulator is an open person. The eighth behavior is what I call the loyalty audit, and most people fail it without ever knowing the test happened. It works like this. Someone in your circle says something slightly negative about a mutual friend or associate when that person isn't present. It might be framed as concern. It might be disguised as a joke. But the core of it is a small, targeted criticism delivered to you in private. This is not gossip. This is a probe. They are testing whether you will agree, add to it, or push back. Your response tells them everything about how you'll behave when it's their turn to be discussed in a room they're not in. But more importantly, the person conducting this probe has just told you everything about themselves. Because a person who brings you negative information about someone else, unprompted, will absolutely carry your information to a third party when the geometry shifts. The direction of gossip is never one way. If they're bringing it to you, they're taking it from you. The only variable is timing. The ninth and final behavior is the slowest to reveal itself, which is exactly what makes it the most dangerous. It is the pattern of incremental boundary violations. This person doesn't cross a major line on day one. They cross a minor one. They show up slightly late. They borrow something and return it slightly damaged. They make a comment that's 10% past acceptable, and then immediately laugh it off. Each violation is small enough to feel petty if you address it. And that's the design. They are not testing your boundaries. They are eroding them. There's a difference. Testing implies a one-time event. Erosion is a campaign. Each small overstep recalibrates the baseline of what you'll accept. 6 months later, you're tolerating behavior that would have been unthinkable on day one, and you can't even pinpoint when it changed because it never changed all at once. The people who destroy your life rarely do it with a single catastrophic act. They do it with 1,000 tiny ones, each too small to justify a confrontation, each building on the last, until the accumulated weight collapses something you thought was solid. And here's what makes all 9 of these behaviors so effective at exposing someone. None of them require confrontation. None of them require you to ask questions, issue ultimatums, or put yourself at risk. All of them require exactly one thing: the discipline to watch instead of listen. Most people never develop that discipline because watching is slower than listening. Listening gives you data immediately. Someone tells you who they are, and you get an instant model. Watching forces you to wait. It forces you to hold judgment in suspension while behavior accumulates. It requires the patience to let someone reveal themselves across 10 interactions instead of one conversation. That patience is rare, and its rarity is exactly what predatory people count on. They know you want to categorize them quickly. They know you want to decide if they're good or bad within the first few meetings, and they build their entire presentation around that window. They front-load the charm, the relatability, the carefully curated vulnerability, all designed to pass your initial filter so they can operate unchecked once they're inside your circle. The counter strategy is brutal in its simplicity. Slow down your conclusions. Speed up your observations. Don't decide who someone is. Watch who someone is. And understand that the version of a person you see in month 1 is their audition tape. The version you see in month 6 is the actual show. Most people invest in others emotionally long before the evidence justifies it. They commit to friendships, partnerships, and relationships based on how someone made them feel in a controlled environment. And then they're shocked, genuinely shocked, when the uncontrolled version shows up. You shouldn't be shocked. You should be ready. Every person you'll ever meet is running a cost-benefit analysis on your relationship. That sounds cold. It is cold. It's also true. The question isn't whether people are calculating. Everyone is. The question is what they're calculating for. Some people calculate for mutual benefit. They want the relationship to work because both sides winning is their preferred outcome. Those people are rare and worth every ounce of loyalty you can give them. Other people calculate for extraction. They want to know what you have, what you'll give, and how long they can draw from the well before it runs dry. Those people are common, and they look exactly like the first group for as long as they need to. The difference between them is never visible in a single interaction. It is only visible across time, across contexts, across the full range of situations where character gets pressure tested. You don't know someone until you've seen them lose. You don't know someone until you've seen them win and had to watch how they carried it. You don't know someone until you've seen them choose between their self-interest and yours when no one else was watching. That's the bar. Most people never clear it. The ones who do are not the ones who talk the best game. They're the ones whose behavior held its shape when the room was empty. You don't owe anyone a fast conclusion about who they are, but you owe yourself a slow and accurate one. The 9 behaviors I just laid out aren't tricks. They're filters. Run everyone through them, not with suspicion, but with patience. The ones who pass won't even notice the test. The ones who fail will tell you everything you needed to know. They always do. The only question is whether you were watching when they said it.